What's going on, everyone? Jonathan here with the Venue RX podcast. And my guest today, I recently met when I was at Wedding MBA this past year in 2021. And she had the most incredible booth. I mean, this booth was decked out. There were assistants and clients and new people, and just it was buzzing. It was a hive of beauty and activity, and it was so great to be able to connect with her. And I'm really excited to be welcoming Corinne Heck on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jonathan. This is fun. I'm glad you enjoyed our booth.
It was so amazing. I mean, you're on that corner there, and it was like this whole entire experience. I mean, it wasn't overwhelming, but it was like a thing. Like you went and you were in the zone, and being able to chat with you and some of your team members was really, really neat.
Yeah, well, thank you for stopping by. Yeah, we have gone there. This is like our 6th year, I think, attending the show. So when you go once, you pick up a few things. Let's try that next year. And we definitely think that people enjoy all the flowers. So we always get a lot of good sponsorships from our partners. So we try to showcase all their blooms while also showing off our software and just showing how we're making florists more profitable, efficient, business-like. So I'm glad you took away some of our finer points.
Oh, definitely did. And I was not looking at it with the most sophisticated eyes, I have to say. So I know that people got a lot of value from it. Your company, we've been kind of teasing it a little bit, is Details Flowers. Is that correct?
Yes, Details Flowers software.
Perfect.
We added software at the end. It's kind of been an evolution of my 15 years. But yes, we're in the software space for florists.
Amazing. I love that. And, we were just talking before we got on here. I think it's so cool to see businesses serving our industry in this way and kind of like bringing us along. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of what your company does and how you serve clients, can you give me a little bit of an origin story of like you and how you ended up starting this company and how you ended up in the wedding and event industry?
Yeah, for sure. I ended up going to the University of Florida, where I majored in marketing. I also ran all of their sorority rush. So at the University of Florida, there's like 2,000 girls that come through. And it was like my first introduction to party planning was being thrown in feet first in this really exciting arena. After college, all I wanted to do was work with flowers. So I started working for a flower shop, running their computer systems. And they wouldn't let me design because I had no experience in design. So that was kind of the goal. And after a baby, was a stay-at-home mom, found out that was like kind of not fulfilling all of my creative needs. And my husband was a photographer. We moved to Miami. And lo and behold, I wanted to get back to work. So I started working for an import flower company where flowers are brought in from like South America. And it was my job to sell all these boxes of flowers. So I did that for a little while and started learning all the ins and outs. And it struck me as like an aha Oprah moment that they didn't know what people were going to request before they requested it. So I was always bringing in all these boxes of yellow roses, but everybody that week was asking for purple. And I would say, well, why didn't you buy like purple roses? We would have made a fortune. And they were like, well, no one knew what people were going to ask for. So it kind of stuck with me. And then once I moved to Central Florida, I really had a desire to be a wedding florist. So it's kind of a long story, but ended up opening up the studio and realized that I needed a more proficient system. And in order to sell a wedding, I really needed to know what I needed or what I was going to make to be profitable. And I realized I had solved my initial pain point on the other side and realized when I send out a proposal, not only do I know everything I'm going to need to order, that information could all be tracked back to the suppliers so they could have insights into everything that was happening along the supply chain. So in an effort to make my business more profitable, we realized that we were really onto something. So I set out to create a software solution for florists so they can now build and send out proposals, but they can also order products from a variety of suppliers that are connected into the site. And then we track all those analytics to give breeders and growers different insights about how their products are performing.
Wow. Talk about a firsthand exposure to trends. I mean, you're kind of on the cutting edge of, you're seeing how people are buying And that, I mean, Amazon has taught us, any study of business has absolutely taught us. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was kind of really like just a big idea, but I really didn't know how, because to me, my outside looking was that the floral industry up to that point had been pretty tech, averse to like looking into this nitty gritty details. And I found that there were not a lot of florists that were as meticulous as I was in my contracting solutions. So often I would be approached by wedding planners. Hey, you should really sell this to ABC florists. They could really use your help. And that's when I realized that I've created a solution for my own business that could be, if it could be duplicated, I could help all these other companies. But now we're even tailoring that back to like dig in deeper to the supply chain and then help our suppliers be more thoughtful in their productions and their costs and their wastes, and just helping more people throughout the chain.
Absolutely. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of that a little bit more, I'm really curious. It seems like you kind of came full circle in a way, because you were working with that company, not doing floral design, but, handling the computer systems. Mm-hmm. Is that something that has kind of been a part of you all throughout? Like, are you kind of a techie person, or have you kind of skewed more in that direction throughout your life?
I feel like I was always like a geek, but also like a leader. So I was like captain of my dance team, would do all the organizations and plot out like, the different ways that we needed to stand to make that really come across. So I don't know. It's just, I've always enjoyed the numbers part of it. Like they always said, you'd never use algebra, in school. And I use it every day of my life. I love it. I love the numbers. I love digging in. So yeah, I would say that I'm kind of, a geek in that regard, but I feel like those key metrics are really what kind of can drive decisions. And where you look at that data, you really know if it's like an effective means to like do your business, or if you need to pivot and do something else. So yeah, it is kind of full circle. I never really thought about it that way, but
did you, as you were making this transition between being being in the industry, like, being a florist, really focused on floral design, and then having a shift to providing a product mm-hmm. for other florists, was that shift something that came kind of naturally as the process unfolded? Or was there kind of a moment that you're like, I'm in tech?
Well, it's actually funny you asked that. So I read these books that said, you have to proclaim what you are even before you become it. So as I knew I was wanting to build out this software, I still had my event design company, which was my bread and butter. But when I would go places and they would ask me what I would do, I would always introduce myself as a floral software developer, which would always add more questions like, oh, you're in tech. And it's like, well, I'm not really a developer. I write a really mean Excel sheet. But it was just a means to an end. So I feel like there was an evolution. I was doing all kinds of pitch events to raise money and like going up in front of people and just doing these at the Florida Venture Forum is where you go and meet all kinds of VCs. So I was constantly having to pitch my idea. But then I was also running my event business on the side. So it was kind of a wane until one took over. I kind of closed the other one down, but
the event design, closing that down and kind of like the crescendo of the other business.
We stopped doing event weddings in 2018. I launched the software in 2015, but I had opened up my event design company in like 2003. So we did 15 years of full events before I completely moved over to software.
I love that, because I think that there is something to be said where a founder has their origin story actually in the industry, and then they create a tech product instead of having someone who's venture backed, who is a tech first person who goes and says, how can we take tech and apply it? When you go that direction, there are some of these intangible pieces that may not get solved by a product, even though you're getting 90% of it. It's just that little bit that's not fully fulfilling it.
And I feel like until I had the actual pain points or knew how labor intensive these jobs were, you really wouldn't see like the finer details of what do you need to fix here that is not working well with the solution. So I think it took someone to actually connect these two sides of the industry, because there's the florists, they're the front lines, they're the ones selling all the products. And then the wholesalers are fulfilling those orders. But if there's not that great communication in between, we're not really helping our florists do their job any better, or leaving a lot of what ifs to be completely solved when, I feel like the wholesale companies and importers have not really equipped our florists to be the most successful. So I think it took someone that has been working on both sides to kind of see how those areas needed to be married.
Absolutely. Do you feel like the average florist who just starts his or her business, right, kind of from the ground up, and they're maybe not aware that there are tools like yours out there, do you think there's a learning process that is really steep in kind of managing some of this? Or do you think that it comes pretty naturally to people as they start getting aware of the industry?
Well, 5 years ago, I don't think that software solutions were as known about. So I definitely feel like in the last 5 years, people know that there's like a floral solution available to them, or an assortment of different vehicles they could use in their software that they could adapt. It's been really crazy. 8 years ago, when I first started doing this, like I would call people up and they would say, "Oh no, there's nothing like that." And they would like hang up the phone. So it was like a lot of cold calling to say, "No, we have a great solution." So that's why we started coming to like the Wedding MBA, is to like get our product in front of people so they could actually see that there was a tool that was so dynamic and robust that could actually cover all the intricacies of bringing in, 50 different flowers for one event. So I don't know. It feels like it's all happened all at once. And then it's been like a long road to even get people to know that there's a solution that does exist. I would say for newcomers, of the newer generation, they're so much quicker to jump in and get like, just dive in, feet wet. They've got it running. We just hired someone here and she's on day 3 and she already knows how to do everything, but she's, 25 years old and like the phone is nothing new to her. She's grown up with it. Older florists are a little bit slower. They're like, they just think it's going to take a tremendous amount of time to like get their company up to speed. But we've tried to make it so simple for them. It's basically just plug and play. You just put in a few different parameters of what your tools are, and then you'll be off and running. So
I love that. Could you take us through, for anyone who is watching on YouTube or listening on any of the podcast platforms, can you just kind of take us through verbally the steps and the pain points that your solution solves? If I'm a florist, I actually don't know anything. Maybe my listeners are going to learn something from here. I know nothing. I'm a complete novice. So take me through your product from getting the order, I guess, selling my client to the fulfillment.
So basically, when you first start, there's a pipeline. So it basically show you all the events that you have listed. And so you can move through those to see who you might have an inquiry with. There's also some forms that you can generate, or like surveys you can send your clients to learn more about them that get automatically weaved into the software. The next step is setting up the timelines, or where do you need to be when you need to be there, or easy way to communicate with the rest of the people on your team. Maybe you have different people on your team that you want different levels of access to see, like when's the delivery times, or maybe your bookkeeper needs to get in there. So there's different roles that you can set up. As far as building out like a worksheet, so what's really cool about Details is there's a whole design board that you can create for your clients. So you can go into our item gallery, select the different flowers that maybe you want to use in that event based on color, seasonality, if it's a line or a shaped flower, or, just a bunch of different ways. But basically you can drag and drop those blooms into the contract, and it will show you all the stems that you're using, what they cost, and you can set different margins. So as you add or remove these blooms, it will show you what you should charge for that bouquet.
Wow.
Once you've designed one, you can save it as a recipe, and you can also drag the recipe right into a contract. So once you've finished maybe like a beautiful floral hoop, all you have to do is drag that element into the contract, and it will show you what you need to order, who you need to buy it from, what it will cost you, and what your profits will be. And then, I could go on and on, but there's a gorgeous proposal, which is really the selling feature of our software. So
yeah, well, it sounds like also the calculation component of just like knowing what your profit margin is based on the arrangement that you're creating. I mean, that just coming from a business background and a business mind myself, I'm like, oh, that makes total sense. You know, you can kind of focus on the art rather than focusing on the nuts and bolts.
Well, and that's what's interesting about the floristry is if you're a novice florist and maybe you're not familiar with all the 3,000, 5,000 blooms that you can have available in our solution, you can see when those are available, if you should offer a product. We even sync with different manufacturers so that you can see different vases or how many are in stock at this particular company. So you can drill in there to see exactly if something's available before you even offer it to a client. So how often have we all been down this, hey, I can do this beautiful chandelier for you, but that chandelier is sold out. And now you're having to backtrack and sell them something else when they wanted your original concept. And if you would have just known that, you would have sold them something completely different. So it's just being informed and knowing what your buyer wants, but presenting it in a way that it's an easy yes for them. So
where do you think the buyers, and these are the buyers of the floral, the buyers of the florists, products and services, where do you think they're getting most of their information from? I mean, is this Instagram? Is this Pinterest? Is it Facebook? Like, where are people really getting their ideas for how they want flowers to show up at their event?
Oh, goodness. I think it's a variety of ways. I think Instagram has definitely changed the way that we all look at events, and it's like, who are you wanting to impress? But we find that there's so many boards that are being saved on Pinterest of just different ideas. So that's actually a new area that we're focusing on and just really digging into Pinterest a little bit more this year to see how that might change like some of our metrics. But I think everyone is just gathering as much as they can and hashtagging it to all their friends, and seeing what's next. And I think that the algorithms of all these companies are also playing into what we see and who's paying a higher dollar. So I think if you can get information from your friends organically, or just saying what you like. So it's just we're so inundated with all these different flashing lights and bells everywhere,
That's such a good way to say it. Like the social media landscape, I mean, with TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, like we are constantly being inundated with these messages. And I think especially when there's a life altering event, like a wedding is, I know there's definitely going to be a certain level of marketing that gets pushed towards folks. From your side of things, kind of transitioning back to what you do as now someone who works and supports vendors in this industry, did you find that your mindset has changed substantially in the last 2 years? Given everything that's gone on in the world, have you seen a huge shift in your business or how you need to serve your industry? Or have things kind of got back to, post-COVID, I guess we could say, is the industry the same or has there been a big shift? We enjoyed the actual experience of going through, obviously no one really enjoyed it, but for us, we had to really take a step back and really realize what service are we providing to our florists and how can we help them stay in business, even aside from all the chaos that was going. So for us, we really focused in, and I think a lot of our customers did that, into becoming fully servicing our florists, not just the events, giving more retail information or tax information or providing different elements that maybe could make their business a little stronger. And then providing different ways to make the events even more easy to create. So we have added some new collections and also contract terms and just different food for thought about efficiencies. So I feel like that's how we pivoted with the pandemic and everything that happened over the last 2 years. Is I don't think we were as structured other than offering our solution and just trying to get out in a variety of ways. We realized that we could really give them a more fully serviced company and digging in just to see what the pain points of all of our customers are to make sure that we're really targeting all those different needs. So I don't know if that's the right answer, but no, that totally makes a lot of sense. As you were saying that, I was thinking about just our industry as a whole and thinking, does a product like yours only serve florists, or could it also serve venues, planners, other people who may not? Because the one thing that I've seen is there's been this compression in some areas if you will, of people have a certain budget, venue prices I know have gone up, certain vendor categories have gone up. The budgets really haven't gone up that much. Right. And so now all of a sudden, I think less people are trying to do more and people are really trying to find ways to stretch their budget. So do you just focus on florists, or are there elements of your tool that are useful for other vendor categories as well?
Absolutely. We've made the software really flexible so that you can create a variety of templates. Maybe you have a venue and you have different areas for which you can create, like where the ceremony takes place. Maybe you have a gazebo or you have a pond or whatnot, or all these different items that you might sell. So you can create different templates and different recipes based on what you might selling. We found that there's been a lot of DJs that might use our solution. We do have a variety of venues that, there's like great old barns or different like chateaus or something that will use our software. But what I have identified is there have not been very many solutions that are floral centric. Like you can find something like Honeybook, like that's a great solution. However, it doesn't have a whole catalog of all the different flowers in there. If you are a florist and using Honeybook, like that's great. But if you saw what details could do for that side of your business or the ordering, you'd probably want to marry those two together. So I guess it just depends on if you have an inventory that you need to keep track of or different elements, you could really benefit from using details. But we have provided, we partner with all the major suppliers. So instead of having to load up, thousands of blooms, you can just open up a folder and it will show you all the stats on that flower, the cost of that flower, who you need to order it by, what you paid for it. And you can track all of those different metrics on any kind of item. We just give you all the flowers because they're just there's so many. It's so...
Yeah. That's one of the things that honestly really impressed me when I was in the booth, and you had this big display, I remember, and you were kind of showing different information and just like supplier information and some of those things. There's this entire world behind that curtain that I was completely amazed with. And it's really cool hearing the level of intention that you've baked into this software tool for florists. So I think it's completely fantastic. I'm curious though, as you look at our industry as a whole, as you're looking at tools like Honeybook, you mentioned, like other tools in our industry that are slowly coming out, do you think it's going to have a remarkable effect on the industry? Because in some ways, I feel like our industry has been a little bit slow to adopt other pieces of tech. Certainly some companies use tools like Slack and things like that, but oftentimes we're solopreneurs. Obviously sometimes we're smaller organizations. And so we operate in a different way than a large tech firm or an engineering firm or a legal firm, something like that. So what's your impression now that you're kind of in this software space? What's your impression of the impact that software services like the one that you have here, what's the impact that that's going to have on the industry as a whole?
Well, I think they're all moving everybody forward to kind of evolve and see what the key performance metrics of your business. And, for us, we want to make it easily accessible so that you don't have to write a bunch of code or write a bunch of things that will have our products play nicely with other software. So like we are really going to the extra step to engineer our software where that it can be easily integrated with, say, a QuickBooks or a Zapier so that you can create all these other messages that might just automatically get sent to the rest of the people on your team. So I think from that standpoint, technology is like making us all move super, super fast. And I think that we don't even realize how slow we used to do things before because we've adopted all these new things to make it even faster. So I'm always like challenged because people are constantly sending us, I wish the software could do this. It's like, okay, we're going to log that request and put that in. And when we work on this whole area of the site, we'll make sure to include that in there because that's a great suggestion that we need to keep listening to, like, what are these pains? But I think that we just need to stop and realize how far we've come and like where that we can see where the next steps are. So I think that technology is a super convenient for all of us. It's making all the world move super fast. And I love it, but I am always like so averse to adding something too new to my plate of all the different things I have going. So I understand when people are like, oh no, I could not learn details because I cannot learn one more thing. And it's like, but if you just do it, you'll wonder when you did like live life without it, if that makes sense. So I hear the pain points, but.
Well, to your point, I think that there's a layer of the customer already being used to, the customer being the couple, right? Mm-hmm. Being already used to using some of these tools in their daily lives, in their professional lives. And so they're used to it. There's a level of speed and there's a level of intention and there's a level of intelligence behind the tools that maybe is not present as much in this industry. So then when a tool comes along like HoneyBook or a beautifully crafted proposal from Details comes along, it just feels right because we're living in this mobile first world. We're constantly connected to our devices. Our wallets are either stuck to our phones, here on there in some of the virtual payments. And so I think it's a really cool thing. Corinne, one thing that I wanted to ask you though, and this is not really something that I had a chance to ask you at Wedding MBA, and I honestly didn't even tell you I was going to ask you this now. So a bit of a surprise question, but I want to wrap up with this. I know I'm building it up, right?
I know, right? Scared.
As you have professionally moved from, kind of one category in the industry to now serving this whole category of vendors, I imagine that the people that you work with has changed in little ways. How have you handled that as a leader? How have you thought about culture and thought about the people that you work with supporting what you do? Because, you were doing event design and maybe your employees were a certain, number or category of people that were focused on event design there. Now you're in the software space. You may have developers working with you and for you. You may have like this totally different type of person who has different, like a tech person is very different maybe than from an event designer, right? So how have you handled that?
Goodness, I feel like it's just, I really love people. I've always loved working with, my brides, and they would all become my friends. And then when I would go to the venues, I was really good friends with all the wait staff or the catering managers there, and just trying to understand them. And, you work with these people on an everyday basis, so they become friends. So I feel like I carry a lot of that through in what we're doing here. Everybody that we're working with, even right now, our partners, if it doesn't have a sweet aroma, I'm not really interested in getting involved with them. And I think it comes down to a lot of that company culture. Like if people on my team don't give 100% or they just come in with a bad attitude, like I'll have a talk with them and I'd be like, I want this to be fun. I want it to be fun for you. I want it to be fun for me. There's no reason we can't enjoy what we're doing. So I think your attitude has a lot to do with like who you involve yourself with. And so, we make lots of notes. Okay, that person wasn't very nice, or we're going to remove that florist from our call list because they're not even they don't sing the same like code that we sing here. So I don't know. I feel like that's just been part of our success, is just dealing with people that we really enjoy and we want to see successful. And that's who we listen to. So I feel like there's a lot of times maybe, I don't know. I think that's a good philosophy for life. Enjoy what you're doing, enjoy who you're doing it with. And, everything else you can't control. Right?
I love that you said that, because honestly, it's hard. It's easy to get into a habit of thinking, oh, this is going to be hard. I'm going to grind it out. And you don't realize that you've gotten to this habit of complaining, or you've gotten to this habit of working with people that are just like constantly a grind. And having that awareness to kind of back up a little bit and say, okay, what's consistently adding that negative input, and then making those decisions. I mean, we can do that with our clients, right? As professionals, we can do that with our employees. We can do that in our personal lives. So I love that you said that. And I think for anyone listening right now, look at the people that you work with, look at the clients that you have, and don't be afraid to make those edits that will allow you to make these positive changes in your life. I love that.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I mean, there's people that I've worked with for years in different capacities, and they'll come along again later, and I'll know it's going to be harmonious just because how much I enjoyed working them before. So you never know who that might be, but if there's someone that you feel like you just don't click with, like, cut them loose and or move along, or just the grass is greener on the other side. So I guess that's just something, but
I love it. Very cool. Corinne, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you sharing with us about Details. I'm going to put links to your site in the description here, and also the descriptions on Spotify and iTunes and everywhere else. But for anyone who wants to either connect with you personally or connect more with the company and kind of see what you do, maybe a florist out there who's living in 2005, and just come on, get on the train. I love it. Where can people find you? Where can they connect with you?
Well, they can always connect with us on our website, which is detailsflowers.com. You could email me personally at Corrine Detailsflowers, which is CORRINE at detailsflowers.com. If you want to connect with us on Instagram, we would love that. We'd love for you to follow along. We're building those followers slowly but steadily. So,
I know I'm a follower. So yeah, if you guys are listening to this right now, you definitely go follow. Cool. Corrine, thank you so much for coming on. It was really a pleasure to speak with you today and hear about your product. And I am excited to see you again at other industry events and kind of continue to learn more about your company. It's exciting.
Thank you for having me on. Such a pleasure.